is sponsored by Rabbi Moshe Trebish and family, Le'ili Nishmas, his father, Rabbi Yankiv, Rabbi Yehoshua Tzvi. His Yortzeit was Chav Daled Nissen. Today is already B'chodesh Iyar, but we're coming from Chav Daled Nissen. So we would like to wish him that B'schus the Aliyas and the Shama of his father should be a Melitz Yoshe for him, for Arichis Yom V'Shalom Teves, long life, L'chaim V'Levrocha.
Amen.
It's on the same, on par. Rabbi Shai Kente and his family, Mishpachtoi, are sponsoring tonight's shir, and Rabbi Shai is sponsoring it Le'ilu Nishmas, his father, Olav Hasholem, Rabbi Moshe Pinchas, Rabbi Yitzchak Matisyo, whose Yortzeit was Chav Zayin Nissen. Everybody remembers Rabbi Moshe Kente. And let me tell you, I remember him a fair bit. You know why? Yeah, he was the Rosh HaKol from Katanga. And yeah, aber Kadisha is only nicht wissen davon, but yeah, getan asach in Yonim and Askonos. And let me tell you, on a personal note, I spent a lot of time in his bookstore, in his bookshop. And we schmoozed a fair bit. And let me let you know another thing, that Baruch Hashem, a fair amount of books I have, Sforim Akdoshim, have the Kanta stempel. So I always think of him and also Rab Shai is their mother. Allah Shalom, the Iker, the Rebbe will give him L'schus Aliyas Anishoma, Zolazana Meritz Yosher for him, for Arichis Yom V'Shalom Teves, L'chaim V'Levroch.
Amen.
Okay, one more important date, which is this week, and that is Wednesday. And this important date is quite universally known. But it's universally known from different reasons. Everyone knows that Hey Iyar, the 5th of Iyar, is on Wednesday, correct? But everybody knows that date in their calendar for different reasons. But let me tell you, before any other reason kicks in, there is a reason which is found in the Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch and Hilchas Pesach. In the first sif, where he tells us that the Chachamim is instituted to darshan in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, to darshan 30 days before the regel in the Hilchas HaRegel. So the Alter Rebbe details and tells us that there's Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and he says, from Purim onwards, you should darshan Hilchas Pesach. That's 30 days before Pesach, from Purim to Pesach. Umechamisha be'iyar ve'elach, from the 5th of Iyar onwards. Yidrishu Hilchas Atzeres, you should darshan the halachas of Shavuos. And from the 14th of Elul, you should darshan the halachas of Sukkot. I'll call upon him, Mashenigei Elonu, and it's halacha l'maaseh, the Alter Rebbe paskins. You should make a note of it in your calendar, that Hey Iyar. Everybody knows Hey Iyar for many different reasons. You want me to spell it out? I can spell it out. Even though I'm not going to carry the torch, but I can spell it out. But let me just let you know that Hey Iyar is the time the Alter Rebbe mandates every Yid in Klal Yisrael to start learning Hilchas Shavuos. And you can start preparing what you need for Shavuos. Your beautiful flowers, the trees, the cheesecake, all the inyanim, start gathering, preparing what you need for Shavuos. And the Iker is to make the Achon and the Nechoina for Kabbalah Torah with the Sfiras HaOmer, etc., etc. And therefore you're all invited to come to our shir in Chassidus every morning at 8 o'clock. And the Alter Rebbe tells us exactly how we have to prepare ourselves. So that is a very short introduction. I hope it didn't take up too much time. Okay, now the topic of today is in Parshas, being that we, even though not many of us made it to shul and heard had minyanim, some had the schiyah to have a minyan and heard Kriyas Torah the Parsha Shabbos. I'll call upon the upcoming Shabbos. I'll avoid the Ibishas will help them. Before we go on further, let me just say that because the Tzemach Tzedek says we should give every hour on the hour. The time of a plague, we should give tzedakah. So therefore, I'm giving tzedakah now, and I hope everybody will join me to give tzedakah. B'schus, that's tzedakah tatzel limoves. The Rebbe soll hitten nebach Yiden seinen hölchem lo'olam am shene Yiden, bekroivai HaKodesh gor shene Yiden, junge Yiden, alte Yiden, Yidenis, alle Sorten Menschen sind nicht zu verstehen, zu Parshat nicht zu verstehen. Der Rebbe soll euch hitten, der Rebbe soll megen und Massel sein. So we're giving tzedakah. In B'schus from the Haditzilis tzedakah, or whatever it has to attain, it should attain. And definitely B'schus of the Libat Torah, especially of the Torah of the Rogatchover Gaon, should be making umatzel on us, on all of us. Firstly, you should make sure to keep safe, keep your distance and follow all the rules and regulations, even those countries where the restrictions were eased, especially in Eretz HaKodesh. Nevertheless, watch out. Safek pikuach nefashos, don't be a smart aleck, don't be smart. Everybody's coming up with this psak and that psak and drain a cup. Just stay locked in and watch your life and your children's life and your family's life and the Rebishter Titan. So we're moving on. The Sedra, this coming week Sedra, and we learn Chitas daily. Acharei Kedoshim. There are two, I believe there are two Sedras, yeah? So it's Acharei Kedoshim the coming week. The highlight of Parsha Acharei is the beginning, it talks the opening statement, the opening pasuk, as you've all seen, right? In the sheet, in the highlighted after the introduction on the sheet. It's the pasuk, the first pasuk in Parsha Acharei Mois, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe, Acharei Mois Shnei Bnei Aharon b'Korvosim Lefnei Hashem Vayomusu. So that's the pasuk we're going to focus on today, on that topic. So just let me give you just a small little rundown, a short introduction about Nodav Avihu. Now there's so much written in the Chazals about Nodav Avihu. Did they sin? Were they tzaddikim, etc., etc.? It depends where you look. In Chazals, you'll find many Chazals telling us what kind of great tzaddikim they were. Many Chazals tell us about the different sins they had found in the Parsha Torah on the spot, in Parsha Acharei and in Parsha Shmini, and also in the Torah's Kohanim, in the Safra, in Parsha Shmini, and in Parsha Acharei, and also in the Masechta Yuma, Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, page 53a, and also in Tosfos on the spot there, etc. So you'll find all different ways of approaching and analyzing what's going on. It's well known, universally known, the Pirush, the Archaim HaKodesh, which describes the great advance and yearning of the neshamas of the people of the individuals of Nodav Avihu who wanted to connect to Hashem, and therefore that was their avodah, and that's exactly what happened. Read the Archaim HaKodesh; it's very special. We're moving on. So we're just want to introduce to you some pointers just about the Nodav Avihu, which is not just an old-time thing, but it actually relates to us. Some of them are halachic, some of them are agadic, some of them are interesting, and some are just out there. Before we go to the Rogatchover's Torah and what we're going to focus on the topic of tonight. But in general, about Nodav Avihu, let me just bring to your attention that in the Shulchan Aruch and Hilchas Pesach and Siman Tov Chav Tes, where there the halachas are recorded and presented to us, and we're told that throughout the month of Nisan, which we just concluded, and we entered the month of Iyar. So in the month of Nisan, the rule is we don't say no tachnun, and the minig is etc. for the reasons mentioned, and we don't either fast. It's a minig not to fast, and of course on Rosh Chodesh it's prohibited to fast. You're not allowed to fast. Nevertheless, it says that a chassan b'yom chupasa, in the day of his marriage, we know he fasts. So if he gets married on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the Alter Rebbe says in the Shulchan Aruch, and that's the Psak Halacha, that nevertheless he will fast even on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, even though number one it's Rosh Chodesh, number two it's Chodesh Nisan. The Alter Rebbe refers us to Siman Tov Kuf Ayin Gimel in Shulchan Aruch Harechaim, and there the Ramah records and references the Psak Halacha of the Shulchan Aruch of the Mechaber in Siman Tov Kuf Pei. That is that being that Nodav Avihu passed away on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, as we learn in Chumash, right? It says that in Parsha Shmini, and it says Shmini is Shmini Limiluyim, according to Rashi, not the Ibn Ezra, has a different approach. But Rashi learns Shmini based on the Chazals, the different Chazals. Rashi says Shmini, in the Parsha Shmini, which we can also refer to, Rashi says Shmini Limiluyim. That was the 8th day of the inauguration of the tabernacle of the Mishkan in the desert. That was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So that's when everything occurred as described in the Chumash and Parsha Shmini and Acharei Mois of the sons of Aharon. So being that it was the day of the Misas Nodav Avihu, so therefore it is a day which one is meant to fast. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. It's called a Misas, it's called a Tainas Sadikim in Poskim. And therefore the Chos and B'yom Chobasei fast. So I'll call part we see it has halachic implications even nowadays, that there is a fast they recorded. We don't fast for a lot of sages recorded in the Shulchan Aruch, recorded in the Chumash, and great sages who passed away, and we know their dates. They got to say their adoris. We know to pinpoint exactly dates of certain greats who passed away at specific days. Nevertheless, they're not recorded. Even when they're recorded, we lav dafka fast. Lav dafka they're recorded. Head dafka the Misas Nodav Avihu was recorded. So that's one thing which is practical component for those who need to implement it. Then there's another very interesting halacha which is also Negea Lepoil. So even though it seems from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch it's Negea only to Yom Kippur, but nevertheless, if you look in the Magen Avraham, which the source is the Zohar, it could be a Slav Dafke on the day of Yom Kippur. It could even be on any time when we learn the Parsha Acharei Kedoshim. Let me read for you the words, the holy words of the Alter Rebbe, Bilshoni Hazov. In Hilchas Yom Kippurim, in Siman Tov Reish Chof Aleph, the words it reads as follows. Sift Hezvav reads, Hamitztayer al Misas b'nei Aharon. If one is pained because due to this that the sons of Aharon passed away, meaning God of Aviv, umorid demois aleim, and he sheds tears due to the passing of the sons of Aharon, not of Aviv, lost sich treren. B'yom Kippurim, on the day of Yom Kippur, says the Alter Rebbe, Moichlin avonosav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu atones for his sins. Ubonov, and he is promised, Ubonov einon meisim b'chayav. And his sons, his children, his descendants will have long life, won't die, God forbid, in his life. Like it was in the case of Nadav Aviv, that they passed away, unfortunately, b'chayei Aharon HaKohen. This is sourced in the Magen Avraham on the spot. And the opening statements of this siman in the Hilchas Yom Kippurim is quoted from the Zohar. Opening the Zohar, you will see the Zohar says the reason we read Parsha Acharei on the day of Yom Kippur, we read about the Misas Nadav Aviv, being because the Misas Tzadikim are mechaper. And then the Zohar goes on to say, when we read the Kriyas Torah on Yom Kippur, and we read about the Misas Nadav Aviv, and one is mitzstar, so then he records what Alter Rebbe says, and it's a kapara for him, etc., etc., and the Zohar promises what it promises. So the fact is that the Magen Avraham and the Zohar don't seem to say that it has to be dafka on the day of Yom Kippur, even though these statements are brought in the Zohar in sequence to the reading of the part of the Kriyas Torah of Yom Kippur. Nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe says only if it's done on Yom Kippur, but like I say, being that the coming Shabbos is the Kriyas Torah of Acharei, and every day of this week we learn Acharei Parsha Acharei Kedoshim about Misas Nadav Aviv. So if he tunes in, listen, B'kroi vaya Kodesh, like it says, my Rabbi Rashi brings that Moshe and Aharon thought that they were close to Hashem, and therefore Hashem will take them, and Dafka they see that Nadav Aviv was closer to Hashem than they are. And never, unfortunately, we see Shene Yidden, Gehoiche Neshomes, Sichvei Stam Yidden, Tayere Yidden, gehen weg von der Welt. Not going to interpret it because we don't know how to interpret it. Everybody drays our cup. But one thing's for sure, if there's a Yid is mitzstar, a Misas b'nei Aharon, he's murdered the Mois aleim, al derech zeh all tzadikim. So definitely brings atonement, especially in the Parsha of Acharei Mois Alavai. We should see it. We're moving on, and that's just some practical inyanim where we see the Shulchan Aruch, and based on the poskim bring to our attention. Let's go on. We find, before we go on to focus on the topic, and this is, we find, in addition to all the interesting things and surprising things and phenomenal things around the story, the many details, and in detail, in the Chumash, in Parsha Shmini, and in Parsha Acharei, and in the Meforshim, and in the Chazals, about Nadav Aviv and their death, and their mode of death, in the Shas, in the Sechta, as mentioned before, in the Sechta Yuma, exactly how they passed away, etc. We find I found them interesting, and this is in the Parsha Torah, and this is, the fact is, it says, and the fire comes from heaven, and it consumes them, consumes Nadav Aviv, and that's the way they pass away. So the fire consumes them. Now that's a Misa B'dei Shamayim, correct? It comes, they don't have, it's not a heavenly death, it's death from heaven. Heavenly death sounds like it's a gewaldige death. It's called Misas Neshikin. A heavenly death is Misas Neshikin. Well, the fact is that the Helike Kamarna, in his, the Baal, the Bavustam Bekubal, we mentioned him before, in his commentary on the Torah's Kohanim, and this Parsha Acharei Moistaka says that the Misa of Nadav Aviv was a Misas Neshikin, like the Misa of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Misa of Aharon HaKohen. A Misas Neshikin is a special way when Hashem, so to speak, kisses the lips of Aharon and Moshe, and that's the way, just as he breathes into them and gives them their soul, that's the way their soul leaves them by the kiss of Hashem. So the B'stamad the Chazal say it, and based on the Zohar, I believe, but the Maisi, he says it in his Sefer Asir Saifa, in his commentary on the Torah's Kohanim. It was a Misas Neshikin, I'll call upon it. So it's a Misa B'dei Shamayim. And what is interesting, the fact is, how old were they at the time? How old was Nadav Avihu? Nadav Avihu, now there's a Zohar, the Zohar in Parsha Acharei says, I'm not speaking any esoteric or Kabbalistic stuff, I'm saying what the Meforshim and the Poskim say, and I'm just sharing this with you, because as they say, sharing is caring. So therefore, sometimes we care, that's why we share, and sometimes we share in order to care. So however it goes, sharing is caring. And let's go therefore. Now, and it says in the Zohar says that the reason why it says in the Chumash, and we're going to talk about it soon, in the Pasuk we have in front of us, where the Pasuk reads, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Acharei Moshe Shnei b'nei Aharon. We refer to Nadav Avihu as the two sons of Aharon. Now, why don't we identify them as Nadav Avihu? They're on their own. They are separate entities. They're grown men. Why do we call them the sons of Aharon, Dafke? And in other psukim in Parsha Shmini, we find that we call them Bnei Aharon and we call them Nadav Avihu. And here we call them only Bnei Aharon. So the Zohar HaKodesh says, because they were still Bershusa Da'avuhoin. They weren't on their own. They were still, so to speak, connected and tied to their father. What does that mean exactly, Bershusa Da'avuhoin? So, Lamaisa, if you'll take out a Seder, the Sefer Seder Adoris, the Bavusta Sefer Seder Adoris, in Beis Alofim, in the date, Beis Alofim 2000, Tov Mem Ches, 448, you will see there that the Zohar HaKodesh, this Zohar is quoted, and he brings a pirush from the Megala Amukis, the Bavusta Mekubal Megala Amukis. The Megala Amukis interprets the Zohar to mean that they were Pochos mi Ben Chof, that they were younger than the age of 20 years. They weren't yet 20 years of age. Nadav Avihu, when they were taken away. When they did the Avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, what they did, and they were taken away, they were consumed by the fire, they were younger than 20, and that's what the Zohar means, that they're still Bershusa Da'avuhin, they're younger than 20. And the question arises, and this shaila is raised possibly by many, that's the way the Megala Amukas interprets the Zohar. And also brought in referenced in the notes, in the glosses, in the Nitzutze Zohar from Rabbi Reuven Ragolis, who was the Safran, the librarian of the Rambam Library in Tel Aviv, wrote many Svarim. So he references this in his gloss on the Zohar in Parsha Acharei. The fact is, in the Sefer Hadrash V'Ho'iyun, very gewaldige choshev, fascinating chibur on Torah, written and penned by Rabbi Aharon Levin, who is the Rav in Reisha, in Galicia, right? I had a Yid named on Cambia Grove. His name was Keller, and he was a Yid from Reisha. He saw Rabbi Aharon Levin in Reisha. He used to come around to my place and describe what he looked like. A tall, broad, handsome. He was also in the parliament there in Reisha. And he knew the language, etc., etc. You heard him speak. Anyway, Rabbi Aharon Levin, who is the Zayda of the known lawyer, Levin, right? Levine, the known Nat Lewin, that's the way he's known. The Zohar Oisei or Ish Letoyers Kumtum Groisus Chosim, because he took care of the Rebbe's case with the Svarim. Nat Lewin, a Tayra Erlich Yid, his father was a big Agudist. Anyway, let's move. The Iker. So in the Sefer Hadrash V'Ho'iyun, he raises the point based on this Megala Amukis and the Zohar that they're less than 20 years of age. So we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Peites, and the Zohar says it in many places, and it's brought throughout different places in the Beforshim and the Halacha, and in other words, in different Chazals, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Bezdin Shel Mata, punishes once after one is Bar Mitzvah, but the Bezdin Shel Maila, the Misivit Shamayim, Hashem is not manish, doesn't implement any punishment until a person turns 20 years of age. And then when it's Misibit Shamayim, or God forbid, Chorus, or Misibit Shamayim, it's either before 50 or before 60. But I'll go you have to be at least the age of 20. What's going on here? That the less than 20, according to this opinion, and Hashem punishes them, the fire consumes them. And he brings an interesting thing. He references that Tzlach, and Hadrash V'Ho'iyun references that Tzlach and Masechta Brochos from the Neidim Yehuda Tzin Nefesh Chayla, Bavusta Sefer, and Masechta, different Masechtas. So in Masechta Brochos, Daf Lamed Aleph, all the Yidden who learns Daf Yomi, he definitely learned his. Anyway, the Gemara with Chana and Shmuel, etc., with Eli, the whole discussion there in Daf Lamed Aleph. So there, it would seem that it was Shaykh, there was the Inyan. The Inyan that was Shaykh, there should be the Misibit Shamayim for Shmuel, who is even just the age of 2. Take a look at that Gemara. Tzlach explains, how could that be? He wasn't yet 20. And nevertheless, he says that this rule, this principle applies only by the average individual person. But if someone is a chacham and a chorif, and he has special ideals, and he's a special type of person, and he has he's a higher more spiritual level. So then, because he's a greater tzaddik and a greater chacham, and etc., so there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything is so sensitive, everything he does and everything he says. So even before the age of 20, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be minus him if God forbid, even he does something minor, and he's punishable even before the age of 20. This is what it says in the Tzlach. And what is interesting is not the Tzlach doesn't say it, even though the Hadrash V'o'im takes issue with the Tzlach, he raises certain issues with it. Nevertheless, he concludes with the Bavuster Sefer, the Binyan Ariel. Everybody heard of the Sefer Binyan Ariel, ala Torah, and it's also a section there on the Shas. Binyan Ariel was a Rav Shaul Amsterdam, and if I recall correctly, Rav Shaya Kanta, who's one of tonight's sponsors, mentioned to me that he is one of his elders or something like that. So Rav Shaul Amsterdam says in the Sefer Binyan Ariel in Parshas Vayeshev, he brings this principle the same, that even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu's manish implements punishment from heaven only after the age of 20, but if someone is a chacham and a chorif, etc., it applies even before that age. And with that he explains why HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nebuch takes away and it says because of their sin, Hashem, therefore they die early in an early age. And he says they weren't yet the age of 20. Al derech zeh, it says in the Chumash that the brothers of Yosef HaTzadik, right, wanted to implement the death penalty on him because they felt that he was chayiv misa b'dei shamayim, even though he was still only the age of 17. It says in the Chumash, right, he was only ben shvayis rishana. So what's going on there? They can't implement it. They can't take the hand, so to speak, the Yodei Aricht of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the answer is because Yosef HaTzadik was the tzaddik, and therefore even before the age of 20, it can happen. So I'll call upon him. I want to just conclude this section that we see this interesting thing, which only conveys that the Nodav Avi weren't epis Parsha to Yidden. The great big tzaddikim, even HaKadosh Baruch Hu, brings about the Yoinish of them even before the age of 20, according to this approach. Just want to say, the Rashash, who knows just about everything, is on this, the Rashash in Parshas Bamidbar highlights, interesting Rashash. The Rashash says, to say that you punish someone who's less, that the Nodav Avi was younger than the age of 20, seems to be problematic, because there it says, in the Medrash in Parshas Bamidbar, that Elazar, the Isamar, who are younger than Nodav Avi, didn't start working at the Beis HaMikdash until they were 30 years of age. Now, if that's the case, so what's going on here? Elazar v'Yisamar, in the Chumash, it seems like they're taking part of the Avodah. They're there, they're involved. They're in the Mishkan. So, how can you say Nodav Avi who's not even yet, hasn't turned 20 years of age, when Elazar is already 30, has to be 30. So that's the Rashash takes issue with it, and it's raised, and it's referenced already by the Meforshim. We're moving on one more point, and this is brought to our attention by the Nitziv Mivalozhin in his Pirush HaMikdavar, in Parsha Shmini and also in Parsha Acharei. And it's also mentioned B'kitzur in the Maril Diskin in Parsha Acharei, ala Torah. And that is, we find an interesting thing, he says. Generally, when someone, God forbid, dies by the hand of heaven, by God, in other words, by the Misa B'dei Shamayim, not by the heavenly court, so he can live on. In other words, he may be doomed to die, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, eventually, like the different days, it's either 50, like the Alter Rebbe brings in the Geras HaTshuva. Depends on the poskim. Some say chorus is 50 and Misa B'dei Shamayim is 60. Some say it's the opposite. But whatever the case is, a person can live on to 50, 60 years of age, even God forbid. And the Alter Rebbe says, even nowadays, he can live on forever, till 99, till 120. Whatever the case is, but whatever the case is, if so, why did they die immediately? Misa b'dei shamayim. True, what they did, they deserve Misa b'dei shamayim, but why all of a sudden, out of the blue, give them a chance, let them live on another couple of years? Why immediately? So if you take a look at the HaMikdavar in the Maril Diskin, they say, it's actually alluded in the pasuk, it says, B'karvosam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. That being that what they did was in the presence of they were in the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, if they would have done it some other way, a certain sin, like the Chazal say that there are many sins, therefore they were chayiv misa, but it could be for those sins they could have lived on. But being that they were now in the presence of the Palter and Shel Melech, they were now either in the Hecht or in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, depending, or Akolpanim in the Mishkan. And this is Lefnei Hashem, Bekarvosam Lefnei Hashem. Being that it's Bekarvosam Lefnei Hashem, and there you're a sinner. So when you're a sinner, Bekarvosam Lefnei Hashem, so there they don't give you a chance to live on. There HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings the punishment immediately, because there, even a minor sin is regarded as something very severe being in such a holy place. Take a look at the Hamikdover, interesting, etc. So these are some interesting novel things which are related in relation to Nadav Avihu. Let's go on. We're going to focus on a topic which is found in the Chazal. That is, it's already 9 o'clock. Realize that our introduction took a half an hour. So I might cut off some things because Bli Neder tonight, we're not going to go over time. So be patient, hang in there, and I will endeavor to be considerate, etc. Okay, and let's move. We're going to focus on what Rashi brings in Chumash. And this is found in the Chazal, in Vayikra Rabbah, and also found, as mentioned before, in the Tosfos, in the Hecht Yuma Daf Nun Gimel, page 53a, and in different Chazals, etc. And that is one of the reasons why, and it seems to be obvious in Chumash, like again, we're not going to go into the details because there are many reasons brought. And if you want dafka, what if I tell you, I'll be kind to you, and I'm going to read off quickly for those English readers. For the English listeners, I use the art scroll. I told you once, if you have an art scroll, use it, as long as you're learning. You know what I mean? Good. Whatever it says, even if you have to, God forbid, be mezalzel in your oifen of the way you learn, but you're learning, so it makes no difference. But it's not a zilzul, it's a kovid, and it's a derech eretz. Baruch Hashem, Yidden are learning, thousands of Yidden are learning, thanks to Rav Zlatovich, Olav Hasholem, etc., and Rabbi Sherman and the art scroll. So everybody has issues with them. Yeah, censor this, censor that, but Baruch Hashem, Yidden, tens of thousands of Yidden are learning Torah, nifla, moira, moiraim, gewaldig, tovai, aleim, brocha. And I use it too. It happens to be not my shas, it's much good in shas. But thank you, much good. Okay, the Iker. So let me just read for you on this in Masechta Yuma Daf Nun Gimel Amud Aleph, in their gloss, in their note, they happen to mention, look how many reasons what the Chazal say. I'm going to go through it quickly. Listen, here you go. Various sources cite several other sins that may have precipitated the death of Nadav and Avihu. So the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma there that the reason that because they seem to that the sons ended up rendering a legal decision in the presence of Moshe, and that was prohibited, and that's why Hashem consumes them. But look, there are various other reasons. What are they? Listen. A, they entered the Holy of Holies. B, they brought an unauthorized offering. C, they took their fire from an inappropriate source. D, they did not consult with each other. E, they were intoxicated. F, they served while missing one of the necessary vestments. G, they entered without fire, first washing their hands and feet. H, they're going through the whole alphabet. H, they had not endeavored to marry and have children. I, they gazed at a sacred vision while irreverently indulging in food and drink. J, they craved power, as is evidenced by the following episode, etc. No, you see what's going on? Just about half of the alphabet. Doesn't end. But we're going to focus just on that one of them, and that is they were intoxicated. Shtuye yayin, s'bavus Chazal. Shtuye yayin nichnas ol hamikdash. Like many Meforshim say, it's actually, and Rashi brings it already, brought from the Medrash, that if you take out your Parsha Shmini, right, we will see that Hashem commands them that they shouldn't drink, right? You shouldn't drink. That is in Parsha Shmini. We didn't record it on the paper, but Hashem says in sequence to what occurred with Nadav Avihu, Hashem tells them, therefore, the commandment in Kapitel Yud, Pasuk Ches and Tes, Hashem says to Aharon, Yayin v'shecher al teisht, Atu v'onecha, Itach v'vayachem eloy al-moed, v'loy somusu, Chukasolam l'derisechem. Hashem speaks to Aharon, I'm going to read it in English, do not also, here you go, another art scroll, English art scroll. Haha. If you like it or not, there may not be people out there who like it, I'm sorry. I don't want to cause you any, discomfort. If you don't like the sound of it, you can tune off. Chas v'cholil, please, my apologies. I just want to say that even though it's not top-notch, it's good. Baruch Hashem. Good. Do not drink intoxicating wine. You and your sons with you when you come to the tent of meeting, that you not die. This is an eternal decree of your generations, for your generations. Now, so we're following with this, and based on this reason, the Rogatchover is going to say a phenomenal pshat in the Torah Kohanim, in the Safra, in the halachic medrash, which after I introduce in very short, we're going to have to cut it down, some different interpretations, which seem to be just plain pshat, and we really don't get exactly what they want to say and what's the message. The Rogatchover has something phenomenal to say what the message may be. Now, I want to share with you another interesting thing. The question is raised as follows. It says in the Medrash Talpius is a choshev sefer penned by a mechaber who wrote the sefer Shevet Musar. Whoever is a Yiras Shamayim and is a Bal Musar and learns Svarim for Yiras Shamayim and the like, and wants to go B'darkei HaMusar, so learns Shevet Musar. It's a Bavusta sefer which has a lot of Musar to be a mensch and an Eider Yid and a refined individual and a disciplined person, etc. Shevet Musar. So the mechaber of Shevet Musar wrote a sefer, penned a sefer called Medrash Talpius, and there in the insert, in the section where on yayin and wine, he brings to our attention a question. He says, how did Notav Avihu have wine at the desert? Nothing grows in the desert. Now this is the type of question Tosfos and Chulin asks also about different things. This question is brought in many other places, but I'll go upon him. This is asked in relation to the wine in the desert. Where do they get wine? And he brings many different reconciliations. I'm going to share with you something interesting, and we once raised this in one of our shiurim. I presented it, and it goes as follows. By first introducing what Rabbi Yosef Engel says in the Hecht Brachas and the Sefer Giliani Yashas and the Hecht Brachas Daf Memches. The Gemara says in the Hecht Brachas Daf Memches that Moshe Rabbeinu instituted the bracha of Hazon HaSakoil, the first bracha in the benching, in the benediction, in the grace after meals. He introduced it when the man fell from heaven, when the divine food fell from HaKadosh from heaven. So that's when he introduced the bracha of Birchas HaMazon. Asks Rabbi Yosef Engel, what's going on here? You have to make a Birchas HaMazon where you eat one of the 5 grains, and you make bread of the 5 grains, and you make it in such a way that you have to make a Birchas HaMazon. You have to make a Birchas HaMazon, you have to bench. But to have to bench, what does he need the Birchas HaMazon for after you didn't consume the man, which is heavenly bread? So after you consume the man, you have to make a Birchas HaMazon? Why is he instituting it then? And he says, the Gemara says in Yuma that when the Jewish people ate the man and they wanted to have all the different flavors of all the different types of foods. So if they thought that flavor or that taste, so that was enveloped in the food. So maybe therefore, because they have the taste of lechem, of bread in the man, so maybe that's why you have to make a Birchas HaMazon. But he says, from taste alone, you don't bench. You bench when you actually eat bread from the 5 grains. You don't get a bench just because something tastes like bread. So what's pshat? So he says, we see from here, a gewaldige thing. And he brings to our attention a Gemara in Masechta Yuma Daf Ayin Madalef, where the Gemara says, the Gemara queries when the tam, it says that the mon contained all the different times, tamim, all the different tastes. The question is, was it tamoy for the Yidden who are learning Isser V'Heter out there, or Yeridea, who learned already, or rabbis, ordained rabbis, or other Yidden, whatever. I don't want to dafka highlight individuals, but the individuals know what I'm talking about. So the Gemara queries, was it tamoy umamoshoy or not? In other words, when you have, the tam, you can have the tam, and without the actual tangible physical stuff, food stuff, and just the tam, the flavor, or you can have the tam and the mamish, the actual tangible ingredient. So says the Rabbi Yosef Engel, we must therefore say that if Moshe Rabbeinu introduced the bracha of Birchas HaMazon after the Yidden received the man, we must say that when they think man, it actually transformed to bread. And they thought bread. It actually transformed, hocus pocus, whatever, genie, however it worked, they are bewitched, they made a twitch with the nose, and they all of a sudden, want to have bread, and Hashem gives them bread. Not on Pesach, of course. It's like the Rishonim discuss, whether they have matzah. So they thought matzah, and it became matzah for Pesach. So tutzach in Yonim. All the Meforshim talk about it in the Sefer Acharei Kedoshim from Rabbi Pesach Frank. On Pesach, he brings it this whole Indian. So Rabbi Yosef Engel brings proof to this, that we must say that by the man it actually transformed to actual bread from the case of the wine with Nodav Avihu. Because where did they get wine? So it says a Medrash Talpius. Here comes the Medrash Talpius. The Medrash Talpius says that where did they drink water? They got the water from the Be'er Shel Miriam. So in Medrash Talpius it says the same hocus pocus, chas v'chalil. I don't mean God forbid to belittle it. The mess which occurred with the man, that when they thought the time, it became that flavor. It became that flavor. So the same applied with the water. Whenever they thought something, the flavor of whiskey, the best whiskeys, Gewaldig, Schleier, Menchi Schleier, the best whiskeys. Oh, I've got to say l'chaim for that, l'chaim. Right, the most expensive, it can cost, yeah? So if they just thought those, did they know? I don't know what they knew. When they thought those whiskeys, so it became whiskey. and it didn't just have the flavor of whiskey. He says it turned into whiskey. He says the same with wine. You must say that it actually transformed not just the flavor or the taste of wine, but it actually was intoxicating. But it wasn't intoxicating that water intoxicated him. You have to say that it actually transformed to wine, and that's why they were intoxicated. Why? Because the din is as follows. We're not going to learn it in the Rambam, but the Rambam makes it very clear in Hilchas Bias Migdosh, where the Rambam says that if one drinks wine and it becomes intoxicated, or even if it doesn't become shikah, but it drinks more than the amount he's allowed to, right? And the cup schwindelt ihm nicht. Schwindelt ihm nicht dem Kopf. Nevertheless, if he does the avodah, he's chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. And if he enters the Beis HaMikdash, he gets lashes. But if he drinks other mashkin hamashakrim, other intoxicating beverages, then he will not get misa b'dei shamayim. There's no misa, you only get lashes. Now what do we have? We have another view that there was misa b'dei shamayim, the fire consumed them. So they had death from heaven. They had death from heaven, they're drinking wine. Where did they get wine? They're thinking in the water, they're drinking from the Beit Shel Miriam, thinking wine. You must say that actually it's transformed to actual wine. It wasn't just that the water became intoxicated, because then you wouldn't be chayiv misa. You only chayiv misa when you drink wine, which gets you intoxicated. So therefore we must say, so from here we see that it became mamish wine. So that's proof to say that also by the mon it came mamish bread. Take out Rabbi Yosef Engel, Masechta Brachos, Gilyan Yashas, Taf Mem Ches. It's one not to forget. That's why I remember. I didn't even have to check it out. It's there. I remember it from day one, many years ago. Baruch Hashem. Let's go now to the sheet we're learning, and let's. Oh boy, it's 10 past. Menshi, what do you say? We're moving. Yeah, let's not talk much, and we're going to wrap this up quickly. Okay, the pasuk Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe. We're reading from the page. Acharei Moshe ben Aharon b'karvosam l'pnei Hashem vayamusu. So we quote what it says in the Safra, that's the Torah's Koyanim, the Halachic Medrash, on the first pasuk. And it says as follows, Vayidaber Hashem, I'm reading it, and it says, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe, Acharei Moshe ben Aharon, and the Safra asks, Ma Talmud loymar? And what's the meaning, what's the question? So all the Mefarshim explained, all the Mefarshim ha-Safra explained, the question is, why does it say, Shnei b'nei Aharon? It should have said in the pasuk, Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe, Acharei Moshe, b'nei Aharon, because this is a repeat of what it says in Parsha Shmini. So in Shmini it says in detail that he had 2 sons, he has 4 sons, he has 2 sons of Avihu, they were burnt, they were consumed by the fire, then his Elazar summer. So we know that another Avihu are 2 sons of Aaron, right? So what does it have to say, Shnei b'nei Aaron? What's the Shnei? That's the question of the Safra. Why does it say Shnei? Ma Talmud loymar. And he goes on to say, he brings the pasuk, let's read the whole thing, because it says, Vayichu Shnei b'nei Aaron, not Avihu, ish machtose. This is a pasuk in Parsha Shmini. Now there, the Shnei there is extra, it doesn't say Shnei in the pasuk. There it says, Vayikchu b'nei Aaron, not Avihu, ish machtose. Each one took their pan, with the Torahs, etc. Now, it says there, B'nei Aharon, Nodav Avihu. That's what it says in that pasuk. See, in our pasuk it doesn't say B'nei Aharon, Nodav Avihu. In our pasuk it says only B'nei Aharon. But there it says B'nei Aharon and it says Nodav Avihu and Ish Machtase. So we're going to deal with the section of that verse in Parsha Shmini which says B'nei Aharon, Nodav Avihu, Ish Machtase. So the Safra says, B'nei Aharon, what's the meaning of B'nei Aharon? It says, Loi Notlu Eitzamei Aharon. B'nei Aharon has come to tell you they didn't receive any advice from Aharon. Nodav Avihu, those words are telling you, they didn't receive any advice from Moshe. Now, exactly how we know it from these 2 words, B'nei Aharon and Nodav Avihu, now is not the time to discuss, but I'm just going to give you an address. You look in the Malbim. There's a long Malbim in Parsha Shmini on the Safra who explains it in detail how we know and that the words B'nei Aharon teaching us that they didn't seek advice from Aaron, and how we know that the words Nodav Avihu in combination with B'nai Aharon, teach us that they didn't either seek advice from Moshe. The same also in the Sefer, those who have commentaries on the Torah's Koyanim, it's called Korban Aharon, one of the known, going back hundreds of years ago, very Choshev Mechaber, one of the first to explain the Torah's Koyanim, he too in detail, both in Parsha Shmini and also in Parsha Acharei, explain in detail exactly how it's extrapolated from these 2 words. And now, why should have they taken Eitzah from Aaron? It's Parshat. Because Aaron is the father, especially in the light that we learned, and that's exactly what the Asira Sa'if, the holy Kamar and the Mekubal, in his commentary says they should, based on the Zohar, doesn't quote the Zohar, but he quotes the words of the Zohar, that they were B'shusa da Aaron, they're still young fellows, they're like teenagers, right? But they're younger than the age of 20, they're still B'shusa da Aaron, so they surely should have sought they should seek advice from the father. They didn't. Why should they seek advice from Moshe Rabbeinu? Because we learn later in Chumash Bamidbar, it says that they were regarded as children of Moshe because Moshe taught them Torah. So therefore, beside their father, they should seek advice from the father. They should seek advice from the Rabbi. They didn't. Okay, that's one issue, separate. We're not going to go there because time doesn't allow. Ish machtose, that's what's relevant to us. Then it says ish machtose, each individual ish. It says each one machtose takes their pan, right? Their machta. Say freifan, they say a freifan, whatever it is. That's the pan which had the Torah in it, the incense. So it says ish. It says ish. What's ish? Says the Safra ish may atzmai osu. The Torah adds the word ish machtosoi, or like the Meforshim say, it says machtosoi and not machtehu, or not machto, whatever. So it's ish machtosi tells us yes, each individual went on his own. Lo notlu eitza ze mi ze. They didn't even discuss it in advance. Nadav didn't discuss it with Avihu. Avihu didn't discuss it with Nadav. And finish. If that's the case, listen, this is what really, that's why it's in bold letters. Says the Safromi. So till now we're talking about, till the prelude, what led them to do their sin, right? They're not talking to Aaron, they're not talking to Moshe, they're not talking to each other, and each one on their own decides to do what they do. And we understand from that they're doing the same Aveira, right? They seem to be doing the same Aveira. That's what it seems from the Chumash. It says, Ish machtose, each one's taking the machta, each one's bringing incense which they didn't ask for, each one's intoxicated. And that's what we're talking about, each one's intoxicated, and they're doing the wrong thing, they're doing the Avodah, being intoxicated. They're destroying Mikdash. So what's going on here? So the Gemara, so the Baraisa says, how do we know, just like Aveira Shneim Shova, that their sin was identical? It's Kach Misa Shneim Shova. So their death penalty was also identical. Talmud Loimar Acharei Shnei Bnei Aharon. How do we know? Because it says in the pasuk Shnei Bnei Aharon. What is Shnei Bnei Aharon? It didn't have to say Shnei. Shnei means that they're two, they're group, they're like one unit. When there's an extra word right before the Bnei Aharon, like and the Malbim and the other Meforshim teach us, like we find in Parshat Acharei, it says Shteit Siporim Chayos. Shteit Siporim, when it comes to cleanse the Mitzvah, right? To be healing to the Mitzvah. It says they have to have two birds, and the two birds, because it says Shteit Siporim. The Gemara says that the Shteit Siporim, if I recall correctly, so they have to be identical. They have to be identical, both birds. So because it says Shtei, because they're like one. Two, so they have to be like one. The same goes for the Shnei. The goats, which we learned in Parsha Acharei this week, says Shnei Sirim, they should obtain two goats, he goats, she goats, whatever, right over there. So one goes Lasar Lachai, and so goes Sar Lazazel. It says Shnei Seirim. The Gemara there too says, and Rashi brings, right, that the Shnei Seirim have to be identical in their value, in the way they look, in the way they grow, in the way they're matured, etc., they have to be identical. So here too, it says Shnei Bnei Aharon, that means they're identical, and it says Acharei Mois Shnei Bnei Aharon. So the Misa of Shnei Bnei Aharon are identical. Now the question arises, what's going on here? What is this special? What is this teaching us? Is this teaching us anything phenomenal? Sounds like a nice pshat. You have to realize we're dealing with a halachic medrash. When we're dealing with a halachic medrash, so true at times he'll tell us definitions of the verse, of the pasuk, but there has to be some practical implication from this definition. It's not just an agadic medrash. It's not like the Medrash Rabbah, who just expounds a different, right, in the methodology of the style of the Medrash Rabbah. It's in the Safron, a Teres Kohanim, which is a halachic medrash. And the Meforshim, and I'm just going to mention quickly, very quickly, for instance, in the Pirush Kordm Aaron says, and also another Meforshim, they say, yeah, I would think that maybe if they would have discussed it together, so then one would have given advice to the next. So the one who gives advice to the other fellow to do what they're going to do should really be, his sin should be more serious and more stringent, because if you, not just you sin, but you're also advising your brother to sin like you, so you carry your own sin and you carry also the responsibility for telling your brother what to do. Here, so we would think, pardon?
No shliach lidvar avera. Why would it be?
We're talking advice now. So in Legabi Shamayim. Good evening, Shalom. Legabi Shamayim, in the eyes of Shamayim, it should be held more stringent than their sin. You know, what says? You're being machri. In other words, you're influencing him. So therefore, it's not like it's a messiah, I call it whatever you want in halacha. But forget about, we're not talking about so much the halachic guideline. We're talking about, so we want to say, no, it's mamish identical. Misa Shneim Shava, the Avera was Shava mamish. In other words, because they didn't discuss it with each other, so one didn't influence each other. And also, Avera, another, it's like also it says in the Torah Shlemi, he brings in the commentary on the Safra, that they did it momentarily, in other words, exactly at the same time. If one would have done his sin before the next, so if you see what your brother is doing, possibly you're mimicking him, you'll follow him, so he's influencing you. So even just following him, so that's a certain influence. You should be careful. Make sure what you're doing, your brother shouldn't realize, because maybe he'll end up following and doing what you're doing. So the same approach. Also another opposite approach, and this is found in the Zayis Ra'anon from the Mogen Avram and his commentary on the Yalkut Shimoni. But it's not in your standard Zayis Ra'anon. If you have a standard Zayis Ra'anon, which is a small, it's only excerpts of the Zayis Ra'anon Hasholem. It's the complete Zayis Ra'anon, which was published years ago, in the original, the way it was published, original could be today, it's reprinted. But in the standard Yalkut Shimoni has only excerpts of it, and this section's not there. And he says, I would think that maybe the severity of their sins are not identical because while one brother is younger than the other, so really the younger brother should have discussed it with his older brother, because there's a halacha that a younger brother has to be mechabed his older brother. So before you do anything, you cannot sure if you're right or wrong, or if you should be doing what you're doing, you discuss it with your older brother. So if you didn't discuss it with your older brother, not just you're doing the wrong thing, what they're doing, but also there's another additional problem here. You're lacking the respect for your brother. You should have discussed it with your brother. That's what the Zayis Ra'anon says. And Mahagos Maharit from the Daily Yisrael Biderman, from the family Biderman from Poland, explains why Taka isn't that regarded as another additional sin, because really he didn't have to ask his older brother. He should have asked Aharon, he should have asked Moshe. That's a separate issue why he didn't. But all of these pirushim, right? And also for instance, the Torah Tamima says, yeah, Misa Shneim Shava, it means yes, in the stringency of the sin, in the level of the sin, it was the same moment. He says it was the same level, and it's the same moment. Momentarily, everything was on at the same time. Listen, it says Misa Shneim Shava, but if you realize from all these different pirushim, it seems to have no halachic implications. It's just another pirush, another pshat. And in the words of Rav Nosson Gestetner in his pirush Lahiris Nasan on Chumash, he says, "L'may nafkimine." L'may nafkimine. This is Safra teaching us that Averosim Shove and Nisosan Shove. What do you have from it? It's just like another pshat. There's no nafkimine. There's no halachic implications from it. So what's the difference? Therefore he gives his own pshat, and he has at least some lesson in Avodas Hashem and serving Hashem, etc. If you take out a pun in your face, it's too late, so I'm cutting it down. But if you look at a pun in your face from the Rebbe of the Chassam Sofer, he has a pirush which he heard from his shver. He honors his shver, and he says he heard it from his father-in-law, and he records it, and he connects it to the Gemara and Sanhedrin Daf Nun Beis. It's too late now to discuss, and at least that has some kind of halachic implication in relation to the type of death each one gets, and they should have gotten a different death possibly, and that's the chiddush, that each one gets the same death penalty, etc. So look there, time doesn't allow. Let's go straight to the Rogatchover because it's very, very late. Now, the Rogatchover going, let's look at the Rambam. Rambam, Hilchas Bias Mikdash Perik Aleph Halacha Aleph. Let's read the halacha. The Rambam says, again, we're talking about Shtuya Yayin Nichnas Olam Mikdash. The Rambam says, Kol Koyin HaKosher LaAvoda. He starts off in Hilchas Bias Mikdash and Sefer Avoda Perik Aleph Halacha Aleph. Do you hear me? Yeah? Kol Koyin HaKosher LaAvoda. Every Koyin who is fit to do the service of the Beis HaMikdash, Im Shosa Yayin, if he drinks wine, also Loi Lehikones Ben HaMizbeach V'Lefnim. It's prohibited for him to enter the Mizbeach, this area of the Mizbeach Achitza, the Adam Mizbeach, which is in the Hazorah, V'Lefnim, and beyond that, which is that area is called Beina Ulam Bila Mizbeach, that is between the Mizbeach, the outer Mizbeach, the Mizbeach Achitza, and the Heichel. There was a ulam, right? Beina ulam Bila Mizbeach. That's the way it's described in the Mishnayos and Masechta Kelim, Perik Aleph. But we know of that. Akol Panim, the Rambam says, so also Lehikonos, someone who is shosu yain, if he drinks more than the allowed amount, and he is kosher la'avod, and he enters that area from Mizbeach, from that area, and beyond that, says the Rambam, he's prohibited to enter. That's number one. And the Rambam says, V'im nichnas, what happens if he enters that area? Va'avad avidosa, and he does his service, which he does in the Beis HaMikdash. So we say, va'avad, and he does that service, avidosa psula. The avodah is invalidated. That's one thing. Cancelled out. The chayv misa b'dei shamayim, and his chayv misa b'dei shamayim shenemar v'loi somusu, Because it says in the Chumash, right? In Parsha Shmini, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands Aharon, Moshe commands Aharon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands Aharon. We just read those psukim in Parsha Shmini, where he says that this is for generations, and this is the halacha the Rambam records. The Rambam continues on, and he says in Hilchas Bias Mikdash Perik Aleph Halacha Tezvav, there he says, Yero Eli, it would appear to me, and we know very well when the Rambam says Yero Eli, there's a known. It's known. That's a general rule in the Rambam. He doesn't say the Rambam. Everything he records, right, is cut and paste from the Shas. Cut and paste. Halavai was cut and paste. We always look for sources for the Rambam, right? Everything the Rambam saw in the Chazals, he just presents. But when he says Yero Eli, it would appear to me, and then records a halacha, that's something which is his own input, so to speak, and his take from the Chazal, but it's not explicit in the Chazal. We find close to 100 Yero Elis in the Shas. I didn't count, but that's what the number I recall. Possibly in the 90s, and there's a novel sefer from the Aderes, the Choshev Aderes, Givaldig Yid Aderes, who was the son-in-law of Rav Kook, if I recall correctly. Am I right? Just the opposite. Rav Kook was his son-in-law, right? Rav Kook was his son-in-law. Pardon?
He was the father-in-law from Rav Kook.
Nachamo.
He was the father-in-law from Rav Kook. Rav Kook was his son-in-law.
Right, that's what I get. I just corrected myself. Correct, thank you. Right, so Rav Kook was his son-in-law, and the first Zivik, whatever it was over there, the Iker. So he has a sefer, gewaltige sefer called Tshuva Meira. Tshuva Meira. You know, you have to do Tshuva Meira. In Masechta Yoma, there's Tshuva Me'ava.
And he was a grandfather from Rabbi Lau, by the way.
Was it clear?
He was a grandfather from Rabbi Lau.
Ah, there is.
Yeah.
Okay? Wer mit Yiches ist das? Das ist, der ist Yiches, der Erlas Yiches. It's all good. Alle feine Yidden. Let's move. The Iker. Was will ich sagen? Yeah, so he has a gewaltige sefer called Shuva Meira, which basically deals and addresses all the Yerolis of the Rambam. So some read it Yerali, okay? The Yeshiva light call it Yerali, you know, the Hebrew Knights. Those who read Hebrew say Yerali, but it's Yerali. Yeshiva gesagt Yerali, yeah. Okay, the Iker. So he has a sefer Shuva Meira which addresses all the Yeralis of the Rambam and explain why Tak isn't it Mefurish and exactly. So here the Rambam says Yerali, and as we'll soon see, the Meforshim, all the Meforshim make it clear that the Rambam, it's the Rambam's decision, and we see there's a clearer Sefer HaMitzvahs of the Ramban in Mitzvah Ayin Gimel and Sefer HaMitzvahs in the 73rd Mitzvah, where there the Ramban takes issue with this Rambam, and basically it depends on the definition of the Chazal, and that's why the Rambam says Yeroeli. The Ramban says the Rambam has a wrong understanding of those Chazals. While the Ravid also takes issue on the spot. We didn't quote the Ravid, but this Rambam there's also the Rambam also writes. That's why, and therefore he has a total different take, and all the Meforshim discuss it. That's why the Rambam writes Yeroli. But that's not relevant to us. What's relevant to us is what the Rambam is saying, and this is, he says, "Shall kol kohen hakosher la'avodah minichas ben hamizbeach v'lefnim v'hushos yayin u'shikar mishar ha'mishakrin any kohen who is fit to do the avodah, and he enters min hamizbeach v'lefnim, and he is intoxicated or he drinks more than what is allowed. Afal pi, here he says afal pi sheloi avad avodah. Here the Rambam adds, even if he doesn't do the service. Harei ze loike. He gets malchus lashes just from entering without doing the avodah. Why? Hoyel v'royel avodah, being that he is able, he is suitable, he's fit to do the avodah. V'nichlis b'shas avodah, and he enters the Beis Hamikdash during the time of the avodah. The Meforshim express what that means. Menuvel kocha, right? The way he is a menuvel, in other words, in a disgusting fashion. That he's what? He drinks over the amount allotted to him. And he's warned, he was told, the Torah says don't enter. Therefore, he gets malchus. So this halacha added onto the first halacha. The first halacha says there's a prohibition. Okay, that's number one. Number two, what's it called? The Merkeves HaMishnah makes it very clear that that's the chiddush of this Rambam in Halacha Aleph. It says also lo lehikonis. That's not mentioned later, and the Kesef Mishnah didn't seem to realize that says the Merkeves HaMishnah. I'll call upon him. It's very clear there are three halachas. The first halacha in Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph says it's prohibited for him to enter ben hamizbeach v'lefnim. There he says if he does the avodah, he's chayav misa b'dei shamayim. And then in Perek Aleph Halacha Tezvav, he says that even if he doesn't do the avodah and he enters, he gets lashes. And like I say, the Rabbi takes issue with the Rambam what he says ben hamizbeach v'lefnim. And he says, how can you get lashes? There can be a prohibition. The prohibition is only from the Mizbeach area, but not beyond the Mizbeach. That's the issue which the Rabbi takes issue with the Rambam, and what the Ramban and Sefer HaMitzvahs takes issue with the Rambam is basically this whole issue where the Rambam is mechadish, that even if you just enter without doing the avodah, you end up, you deserve lashes. That also the Ramban says is wrong only if you do the avodah. Okay, we're moving on. So that seems to be quite interesting. Let me just bring to your attention as follows. Okay, so there's the next Rambam is not relevant. Where does the Rambam take this din? Now, if you notice the Rambam, I'm highlighting it in the text of the Rambam writes, Kol kohen hakosher la'avodah. When does this prohibition apply? That the fellow who is drunk, intoxicated, call it what you like, shtuya yain, right? When is he chayiv misa if he does the avodah? And when does he get malchus if he enters? Says the Rambam in both halachas. The first halacha he says, Kol kohen hakosher la'avodah. He has to be a kohen who is fit to do the avodah, right? And also the next halacha he says, Yerol kol kohen hakosher la'avodah. He has to be fit to do the avodah. And also in the halacha he says, Hoyel b'hu royu la'avodah. He's roy to do the avodah. So in such a case, he gets either chid misa b'dei if he does the avodah, or if it's asur, he gets lashes if he just enters. Now, where is this coming from? And what's the source for what the Rambam says? That's only a kohen. All these halachas apply only to a kohen who's fit to do the avodah. So take out the next section. It says Vayikra Perik Yud Pasuk Tes. It says in Parsha. It says in the Pasuk, Yain v'shecher al teish, that's the Parsha Shmini. Yain v'shecher al teish, Ato uvanecha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands them, Aharon. Yain v'shecher, don't drink, Yain or shecher or beer, Ato you, uvanecha, and your sons, Itach with you, b'vayechem and Elmeid. When you enter the Elmeid, v'leisamusu, and you won't die, Chukasalim v'yosechem. This is a statute for generations. Okay, I think we're going to go on just for 15 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. So give me 15 minutes because we started late. You realize we started late. We're not going over time. I'm definitely considerate of the listeners. Let's go quick. So the Safra in Parsha Shmini. Now there are two Safras the Rogatchover references. We're coming to the Rogatchover. Realize we are already, Baruch Hashem, in the territory of the Rogatchover. We're being encompassed, Baruch Hashem. We're under the apron of the Rogatchover, under the umbrella of the Holy Rogatchover. So everybody hang on, hang in there. You have to say a special achaim for that. Hey. This is special stuff. This is real stuff. It's not a joke. You darf unhalten in die Klemke. Das ist teure Sachen. Das ist heilige Sachen. Okay, so the Rogatchover references two Safros, two Torah Kohanim. Where the Rambam takes this din from, now it's reference, it's nothing new. The Kesef Mishnah on the spot. The Kesef Mishnah in Perek Aleph, from Hilchas Bias Mikdash, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, references this Safra in Parsha Shmini. And also the Mishnah Lamelech in Perek Tes of Hilchas Bias Mikdash references this Safra from Parsha Shmini. What is novel, the Rogatchover found it important to quote two Safros. If you notice, I quote two Safros. One Teres Kohen in Parsha Shmini, which everybody quotes and references, but the Rogatchover also saw the same message in a second one in Parsha Acharei. And I have a gut feeling why he did it. You'll soon see, but we have to go through this quickly. So the first Safra, which is referenced by all the Meforshim, as a source for the Rambam that you have to be a Kohen who is fit. Because look what it says. It says in the Sifri, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you can't come in shtuya yayin, intoxicated. Who are we talking to? He's talking to Aharon. So he's a Kohen, right? And his sons are Kohanim. Hashem says, Ata uvonecha, you and your son. Says the Gemara, says the Safra, Yochel chalolim. I would think that even a cholol means someone who is a profane person, meaning he was born from a Kohen, the certain women, a Kohen is not allowed to marry. And if the Kohen marries those women, so the child born from that relationship, right, from that intimacy, that child is called a cholol. Okay, that's number one. Or if the child which is born who is a cholol has a child, so his child is a cholol. So that's a cholol. A cholol has a din of a zar, has a din like as if he is someone who is not a Kohen. He's totally desecrated from the avodah. That's a cholol. But he's a Kohen. But he's a Kohen shenischalim. He's a Kohen cholol. So I would think when it says in the Torah, I would think even a cholol is also part and parcel of this prohibition, of this mandate, that he's not allowed to come into the Beis HaMikdash drunk. Talmud loymar itcho. That's what it says in the pasuk. Ato vonecha itoch. What does itoch mean? Oitzi chalolim. I will exempt chalolim. Chalolim were not mandated that there's no prohibition for a chalol to enter the Beis Hamikdash if he's drunk. Now the chalol can enter the Beis Hamikdash anyway. And if he enters the Beis Hamikdash, he has his punishments. The question is, does he have this additional punishment of coming in intoxicated? So that's what the Safra teaches us, that if a chalol does the avodah, or if the chalol enters the Beis Hamikdash and he's intoxicated, this mitzvah, this law of not to come in intoxicated was not addressed to a chalol. Why? We know it from what it says, itoch. Oitzi chalolim. I'm exempt, I'm excluding chalolim. Full stop. Why? Because he's not itoch. There's a lot of definitions of what that means. There's a rivet on the spot. It's too late to go into the details. I'm sorry, I'm cutting out a lot of information. Itoch would mean basically, like you, Aharon. Aharon, you're not a chalol. You're a kosher, right? You're kosher. And if you're kosher, so therefore the chalol is not like you. Hashem is commanding someone like you. Says the Gemara, will I only exclude a chalol that he's not mandated in this mitzvah? How about a balmum, someone, a kohen who has a blemish? And the din is a kohen, a balmum is not allowed to do the avodah. So how about him? If he comes in and does the avodah in an intoxicated mode, does he transgress not just him being a balmum, but also he maybe is transgressing also this that he's intoxicated? Talmud loymar ato uvonecha. That's what it says. Ato uvonecha itoch. Ma'atoch kosher, av bonecha ksherim. Just like you are kosher, just like so your sons are kosher. Yotzu chalolim ubali mumim. So this excludes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is commanding only kosher kohanim like Aharon and his sons, that they are prohibited to enter intoxicated, and if they do the avodah, they chayv misa b'dei shamayim, and if they enter without doing the avodah, they get lashes. But if a cholol enters the Beis Hamikdash intoxicated, he does not, and that or balmum enters, he does not, and that's the meaning of what the Rambam says. Kol kohen kosher la'avodah. You have to be kosher la'avodah. You have to be fit to do the avodah. Only then are you prohibited to enter when you're drunk. Then will you get lashes? Only then will you be chayv misa b'dei shamayim. You get it? So basically, when the Rambam says kol kohen kosher la'avodah, he's definitely says the Kesef Mishnah, excluding chalolim and balei mumim. All good. Question is, and here fangt sich an a ganze tararam, and we have to go through it very quickly. What can I do? I don't know why. Here comes the Minchas Chinuch, a tire Minchas Chinuch. You gotta look at the Minchas Chinuch. Mitzvah Kufman Beis, I didn't record it, but such a long, lengthy Minchas Chinuch, it's unbelievable with the Minchas Chinuch's head works. He's such a kvetcher and a daiken and back and forth. He says, we find the Safra excludes, right, chalolim and balei mumim. How about, how many more individuals are unsuitable to do the avodah? Right? We're talking about Chalolim and Balei Mumim are not like Aharon and not like his brothers. Would you believe, how many more there are? If you take out a Rambam, it's not to be believed. If you'll take out a Rambam, I'm going to take out a Rambam at the end of Hilchas Bias Migdosh, Perik Tes, and there's an interesting halacha, a gewaldige halacha. The Rambam enumerates groups. 18, the Rambam numbers them. There are 18, besides 3 others, 18 unfit fellows, right, kohanim, who if they are, so to speak, have issues with their kohuna, when they do wrong things, so and therefore they're not fit to do the service in the Beis Hamikdash, there are 18 like them. They're 18 like them, and if they're unfit, and if they do the avodah, they are mechalel the avodah, they profane the service. 18. And it's interesting what the Radva says, the Rambam enumerates 18 because 18 says the Radva ze gewaltige Sach, sagt steht v'chai bohem, mit darf leben mit den mitzvahs. So if he keeps these mitzvahs and they're v'chai bohem, so then definitely it'll all be good. And if chas v'cholile, he won't keep all these 18, then it's nicht good. Darf sein v'chai bohem. That's the chai number of these kohanim who are unfit, who are, so to speak, unfit to do, not suitable to do the avodah, the apostle avodah, and to do the avodah, they desecrate, and it's invalidate the avodah. Now, we only mentioned, the Safra only mentions 2, chalolim and balei mumim, right? How about all the rest? So don't ask, the Minchas Chinuch has a long pilpul, and he says, tzorich iyun leish kamoini. Would you believe it? It's unbelievable, the bittul, right? The humility of the Minchas Chinuch. He has a pilpul back and forth. Maybe those who are identical to Chalolim are also excluded. Maybe those who are identical to the Balimumim are also excluded. Or maybe Dafka the Chalolim and Dafka the Balimumim. And even those who are identical, or even some who aren't as more stringent, or some are less stringent, or more serious or less serious, because each one has different grades. Each one has their issues. Each one has their halachas. If you read through Hilchos Bias Migdosh from Perek Aleph till the end, you'll see the different halachas which apply to Chalolim, the different halachas which apply to Balimumim, different halachas which apply to an Einain, different halachas which apply to all those with the Ram for all ones of the 18. You must learn through, read them through in English, however you want to read, you'll see. So the question is, that's why he has a good question. When we exclude these two, do we mean dafka these two? Do we mean anything which fall into that category? Ask Chalolim or not. He doesn't know. He ends up saying he doesn't know. Would you believe it, Tzarechim? He does know. How does he know? And his shaylas are very good. Here comes, so he doesn't know. But then comes there's another Choshev Sefer, and he's known as the Radatz, Rab David Tzvi Zeman, who is the Zayde of Harav Pinchas Hirschsprung, Olav Hasholim, who was the Rabbi Roshi from Montreal. He gave smicha to Bachar in 770. He was a chassid of the Rebbe. He was a Polish Yid, a big London, a big Bucky, a big Gaon, etc. I'll call upon him. So his sefer Minchas Solos, he was Magi. He published some of the sections. They recently, Machon Yerushalayim, republished it and re-edited it. I have it, Baruch Hashem, the beautiful. So he brings the Shaila of the Minchas Chinuch, and he wants to say as follows. He says, look at the Lashon Rambam. He says, the Rambam says, Kol koyin akosher la'avoda. Right? That's stimas Lashon Rambam. There's no reservations in the Rambam. He says, Kol koyin akosher la'avoda. You have to be fit to do the avoda. So even though we exempt in the Safra, and that's the source of the Rambam, we exempt only what? Chalolim Balimumim, that's just an example, right? Just lidugma. Or he says the truth is we have to find out why taka, but we must conclude to say that it's lav dafka these two. Actually, every one of them is included, and that's why it says in the Rambam kol koyin kosher la'avoda, meaning the Rambam doesn't say cholol or balmum if they drink. So then it doesn't. If they're not, in other words, if they're not cholol or if they're not balmum, it comes out even anyone who is a cholol or balmum or any other one of those 18 of that group, if so they're all unfit, and any one of them who went to the Beis Hamikdash, they're not chayiv for intoxication. That's his take. So an interesting take. Has other diyukim, has interesting to say. Again, no time to talk. Then comes another thing. There's a sefer, gewaldig choshev sefer from the Aderes. I love the Aderes. The Aderes is tired. He has a sefer called Cheshboinei Shel Mitzvah from Ksaviyad, published by Machon Yerushalayim in the last many years, from manuscript, and he deals with many issues the Minchas Chinuch deals with. And listen to what he says. He says a gewaldige Zach. He says Mamish Moshe Kapoyer than what the Minchas Solos says. He says Minchas. He doesn't bring the Minchas Solos versteht sich, but the Minchas Solos just concluded and says no, everyone is included. Right? Says he as follows. Listen to what he says. He says, when the Safra quotes Chalolim and Balimumim, it's Dafka Chalolim and Balimumim. Why? Meaning all the others are mandated not to be intoxicated. But these fellows are not mandated. Why? Because where do you know it from? You know it from, they have to be Bedoima like Aharon. They have to be like Aharon and his sons. Now Aharon, you know, what's the difference between a Cholol and a Balmum? Is something inherent. That's in the DNA. That's something in the goof. That's absul begufoi. Absul begufoi. Can't undo that. If you're a chalal, you're a chalal, right? Nothing you can undo. If you're nebuch balmum, you're a blemished fellow, and it's a mum kavua, whatever, and it passes you to do the avodah, it's a chisorin in the goof, right? And when it comes to something which is something lacking inherently, so to speak, if that's the right word to use, so then we can appreciate that we say, that's why you're not like Aharon. Aharon doesn't have those inherent problems, those deficiencies, right? Aharon and his sons don't have a deficiency of a cholol or a balmum. But then all the other faults, all the other ones which are unfit, that is shaykh to even be by Aharon. Like he can't walk into the Beis Hamikdash because what's it called? Chisorim begodim. With less than you have to wear 8 garments for the Kohen Gadol and 4 garments for the Kohen Hedjit, right? Is that shaykh to be by Aharon? And his sons, of course it's shaykh. It's shaykh that Aharon would do it. He won't do it. But it's possible, right? In principle, it's possible. He says things which are in principle possible, those things we didn't exclude. Because we cannot say they're not like you. It's not true. We tell a kohen, if you're going in with one of the, you don't have all the 4 garments and all the 8 garments, you're not mandated. It's called you're unfit to do the avodah, and you're not mandated in this mitzvah of not to become intoxicated, because you're not like Aharon and you're not like his sons. Aharon and his sons, it's possible also to walk in without the garments, without all the garments. But they can't walk in blemished because they're not blemished. They can't walk in being chalolim because they're not chalolim. The Mela, I'm concluding. The Mela says the Aderes, it excluded Dafka these 2, and all the others are a different category. And all the others, if a kohen has the faults of all the others, he is obliged in this prohibition of not being intoxicated. And when the Rambam said Kol kohen kosher la'avodah, he only meant to say someone who is fit, and all the rest are fit. What do you mean fit? Fit means inherently fit. They don't have a psul in the goof. They have nothing lacking inherently in their DNA as a cholol or in their body as a blemish. But if there's something external, they're still obliged. And he says, that's what the Rambam says. Listen to what he says. That's why the Rambam says, Kol HaKohen HaKosher. He doesn't talk about the Rambam, actually. He doesn't even talk about the Rambam. He talks about the Safra. The Safra says, Abonach Ksherim. It doesn't say Ro'oyim. Ro'oyim, you have to be suitable, able. It says kosher. Kosher makes sense when you're talking about something inherent. So you say you're kosher, you're not kosher. But if you're talking about external things, you say you're Ro'oyim, right? You're suitable to do it or not. If you're talking about ksherim, we're talking about dafka, these 2 types, and no others. So according to him, all the others are included. Anyway, the Rogatchover going, here we're going. Give me another 5 minutes. The Rogatchover going, it's mamish finished now. The Rogatchover going says a gewaldige thing. Listen to what he says. The Rogatchover going learns 100%. A cholol is not included, that's for sure. It says in the Safra. Not just a cholol is not included, but also a balmum is not included. It says in the Mefurish in the Safra. Then he also, in his writings, in the different Ksavim of the Rogatchover, he makes it very clear that the same applies for a zar, someone who's not a kohen. It surely applies there. Okay, all good. He's definitely, it's because a zar is like a cholol is like a zar, right? If he's not a kohen. So definitely the prohibition of not to be intoxicated doesn't apply to him. A zar is not allowed to come into the Beis HaMikdash, but if he comes in, someone who is a minor, someone who's not a kohen, in other words, comes in and he's intoxicated, he will only get the punishment for being a zar, but not he won't get a punishment for being intoxicated because he's not kohen kosher. Here comes the Rogatchover. Rogatchover says an oinen is in the same class, in the same group. Oinen, that's very clear. This is what he addresses. An oinen is in the same group as a cholol and a balmum and a zar. He doesn't explain himself, but from the underlying things the Rogatchover says, it's clear to me why, and at least it seems like that's his take, that he understood. It's Mistama not so poshut. And the question is, if he means all the rest or not, I'm not sure. But this is at least what he addresses. An oinen is included. And the fact is that an oinen has something identical to a balmum. And that is, if an oinen, someone who is a severe mourner, right? That some close relative of his dies. So when it's an oinen midoraisa means b'yom hamisa, the day he dies, so then he's an oinen. The din is, right, an oinen is not allowed to do the avodah. That's the din. An oinen can't do the avodah. Kohen Heged can't do an avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, and if he does the avodah is mechuleles, the avodah is profaned, right? Even though he doesn't get lashes and he's not chayiv misa. But that's the din of the Rambam in Hilchos Bias Mikdash. I'll call upon him. So in that way, he seems to have a common denominator with the balmum, etc. The cholol, even though his avodah is not profaned, but he's b'chol not even regarded as a kohen. Anyway, so let's not go there now because time doesn't allow. But it's very clear, the Rogatchover says, that the oinen is also included in what the Rambam says, that kol kohen hakosher la'avodah. He has to be a kohen who is fit to do the avodah, to be commanded in this din of not being intoxicated. Okay? So therefore, we excluded the cholol, we excluded the balmum, and now we're talking about the oinen. Now listen here. Pay attention now carefully. We're talking about shtuya yayin nichus l'mikdash. They come in intoxicated, Nadav and Avihu come in intoxicated, right? Listen carefully. What does the Safra say? They do the same Aveira, and they also get the same death. You know what the Rogatchover says? What's the Lashon of the Safra in the beginning? Kishem sha'aveiras shneim shove, kach misa shneim shove. You know what the Rogatchover says? Shove can mean the same death, right? Doesn't explain. That's the way it's clear from the Rogatchover. And shove means It's identical, meaning not just the same and the same stringency and the same severity, but at the same moment, the same second, the split second. Shove. Shove means shove. You know, what if I tell you there is a lashon in the Seder Adoris, take out the Seder Adoris, Beis Alof and Tov Mem Ches. You know what it says there? They died berega echad. Rega echad. Rega echad. That's some lashon. So shove, the Rogatchover doesn't bring it. Rega echad means it's a split second, in the same split second. So shove means not just in the stringency, in the same type, but it's also like, it says the same time. But he doesn't really explain himself. But it's bibasachas in all senses. Why did it have to be, says the Rogatchover, bibasachas in 1 second and a split second? Because you know what would have been? If Nadav would have been consumed by the fire first, meaning he did his sin first, and he's consumed by the fire first. Why? Because he is a person who is suitable to do the avodah, and he does the avodah in intoxicated mode. So he's included in what the Rambam says. Kol kain akosher la'avodah. He drank wine more than he was meant to, and he did the avodah. It's possible, and chayv mitzvah b'shamayim. So the fire consumed him. Now Avihu, 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, does the avodah. But you get it? He's Nadav's brother. Now, if he's Nadav's brother, he became an oinen out of the blue. He just became an oinen. Beforehand, they were both alive. Once Nadav dies, Avihu becomes an oinen. Now, once Avihu becomes an oinen, he is not going to do the avodah in a mode of intoxication. Will he be chayv misa b'dei shamayim? Who's chayv misa b'dei shamayim? Only a kohen who is hakosher la'avodah. But now, because he became an oinen, he's not kosher la'avodah any longer. He's like the cholal and the balmum. And therefore, he would not be chayv misa b'dei shamayim. The only thing he would be chayv is what? Is malchus, according to a Tosfos in Masechta Makkos Daf Yud Gimel, and nothing according to the Rambam for the intoxication. Get it? The Mele says the Rogatchover, because the Safra in Parsha Shmini teaches us that we have to have that who is chayiv misa for intoxication? Only those who are not bali mumin, and only those who are not chalolim. And according to the Rogatchover, only those who are not oinanim. The Mele therefore says there for the Safra in Parsha Acharei, that when it says in the Torah that they died, you should realize that the reason they died, Misa b'dei Shamayim, both of them, even the second one, was if the second one, he says, I'm telling you, the second one didn't die with his Aveira and his Misa later. As a second, it came sometime after the first one. Because if he would have died sometime after, and he would have sinned sometime after, it wouldn't have been in a mode of what? Of a kohen kosher. He's an oinen is doing that. He wouldn't be chayv misa b'dei shamayim. In the Torah, he's mechayiv the misa b'dei shamayim. So you must say, therefore, Keshem sha'aveinu shneim shove, kach misa shneim shove. It's mamish in a split second. They died in a split second. They did the Aveira together. They did the misa together. So he wasn't an oinen when he did the Aveira. That's why they both chayv misa b'dei shamayim. So this is not just a pshat or a pshetel of the Safra and the Teres Koyanim. This is a halacha the Teres Koyanim is teaching us based on another Safra on Parsha Shmini. And I want to just say, it seems to fit very well with the Lashon HaRambam in halacha Tezvav. We go back to that Rambam. The Rambam says a new Lashon. If you remember what I mentioned, what the Adera says, we're finishing in 5 minutes. The Adera said, kosher kosher may exclude only these and not others. And it doesn't say ro'ui, right? But take a look at that Rambam in Perek Aleph Halacha Tezvav. And I noticed the Rogatchover doesn't seem to quote the Rambam in Perek Aleph Halacha Aleph. He quotes the Rambam Perek Aleph Halacha Tezvav. The Rambam there says both things. Kol koyin kosher la'avodah, hoyel v'ro'ui la'avodah. Kosher la'avodah, maybe you can say, it has to have an inherent flaw. But the royal la'avodah can even incorporate things which don't have an inherent flaw, something which came about after or something external, like an oinen. So if we learn that it's external, nevertheless, when you're royal avodah, yeah, if you're not royal, right? Even though you're kosher, but you're not royal. In other words, there has to be both kosher and both royal to be chayiv. But if you're kosher and not royal, it's no good. And that's why the Rambam interchanges and uses also that language. I want to say another thing. That's another reason why the Rogatchover Gaon may have brought the Safra and Parsha Acharei, because if you'll take a look there it doesn't depend on the ksherim, on the kashrus of Aharon Ubonov. There we're negating and excluding the Baal Mum who is intoxicated just in general. Not because he has to be like Aharon, or not like he has to be Bonov. And just like they're kosher, you have to be kosher. So there's no room for pulpulin. There we say we just don't address the Baal Mum. Because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who does HaKadosh Baruch Hu address? He says, who is prohibited to be intoxicated? Those who are allowed to enter the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Safra in Parsha Acharei. But all those who are not permitted to enter the Beis HaMikdash, I'm not commanding not to be intoxicated. According to that, we're including everybody, not dafke the Baal Mum and the Cholol. So that is what is gained with the second Safra, and that's maybe the reason why the Rogatchover Gaon references the second Safra. With this, we can appreciate what the Rambam says. We can appreciate what the Safra says. There's an Inge, which is the Geila Halach. I just want to conclude, and this is mamish a bit of an interesting ending. So if you want and you're tired, you can go. But let me just wrap it up in this way. There's an interesting, excuse me, and I find it interesting, and everybody finds it interesting. Oh, one more point. I'm sorry. Just one thing about Rega Echad. There's two psukim in Chumash, which actually in the Sefer Vayikra Avram, from Avram Palagia in the Safra, he wonders why this pasuk is not quoted. Because we have a pasuk in Parshas Bamidbar, in Bamidbar, Kapitel Gimel, pasuk Dalet, it says, Vayomos Nodov V'aviu. Vayomos, it should say Vayomusu. Singular Nodov V'aviu. The same in Divrei Hayomim, in Kapitel Chav Dalet, Divrei Hayomim Aleph, Kapitel Chav Dalet, pasuk Beis, it says Vayomos Nodov V'aviu. So that's what's quoted in the Seder Adoros, Vayomos. It says one Vayomos on both, because it was Berega Echad. So that's basically what the Safra is saying. But we have psukim proving it. Vayomos, singular Berega Echad. But that's how Rogatchover, Lahalocha had to be Berega Echad. Otherwise, there wouldn't be no Bisi B'nei Shamayim. I want to conclude with an interesting, now realize that this Rogatchover follows only if we'll accept to say that Nadav Avi were Koyanim Hedyotim. And the din is a kohen hedyot, like the Rambam says in Lichos Bias Mikdash, can't do the avodah if he's an oinen. But the din is a kohen gadol can do the avodah even if he's an oinen. So if we'll accept to say that Nadav Avihu was regarded as a kohen gadol, so the whole pshetel doesn't apply, and it's Parshat. Now take out, if you don't mind, of Targum Yonasan ben Uziel in your Chumash, in every standard B'Korei Dolos, most of them have a Targum Yonasan, and it says there as follows. It's going to take about 5 more minutes. Hashem speaks to Moshe after the death of the 2 sons of Aharon, and listen to what the thing says. Kahanaya Rav Revaya. Kahanaya Rav Revaya. That's plural. That means not of Avi or Kainim Gedolim, seemingly. Kahanaya Rav Revaya. And the Pirush Yonasan on the spot says, yeah, Kahanaya Rav Revaya, the Kainim Gedolim. What's going on there? The Kainim Gedolim? Well, not in vain in the Hadrash Va'o'iyun, again from Rabbi Aharon 11, from Reishe, from Anheim, from Nalitzia. Yeah, so he in the Rabbi Aharon 11 sees this Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, and he says, you know, Kahana Rav Revaya, I'll find you many places in the Targum that it doesn't mean Mamash a Kohen Gadol. Not the Avi wasn't the Kohen Gadol. Who was the Kohen Gadol? What's his name? Aharon was the Kohen Gadol. They were a Kohenim Edyotim. So Kohen Gadol, the high priest, they're not high priests. It means Choshev Kohanim. Kahana Rav Revaya means to say that they're Shena Yidin. They're Shane, that doesn't mean the Mamish, a description what they were, the level, the type, or the grade. It means that they're Choshev. But that's the way one pshat the Rabbi Aharon 11 wants to say. We find it in the Targum in many places. That's the way he translates it. That's one pshat. Another pshat he wants to say that maybe Kahana Rav Revaya, he would like to edit, to censor this Targum Yonasan. And he says maybe it's meant to be written Kahana Rav Revo. Take out the zwei Yiden. Namaros, the zwei Yiden. So the zwei Yiden. Kahanaya, that means many Kohanim. Take out the Yud, it reads Kahano. And also Rav Revaya, take out the Yud, it reads Rav Revo. So he says, what does it mean? He says the Kahana Rav Revo relates to Aharon. Yeah, Kana Rav Rava means Kohanim Gedolim. But we thought it says, what does it say in the pasuk? It says Shnei B'nei Aharon. So the question is, Kana Rav Ravaya, does it relate back to Nadav Avihu, or does it relate to Aharon? He says, if I read it to reread Kana Rav Rava, it's referring to Aharon, not to the sons. And then he has a third Gevaldik.
Doesn't say Kohen Mashiach Me'echov?
Oh, very good. Sehr good. I'm not finished. So Lamaisa, Rabbi Aaron, would you believe it, in a sefer called Von der Alte Yidische Oitze? Yeah? That's Acharei Kedoshim. That's a collection of different Teiralach. So he brings this pirush of the Hadrash Va'in, not in his name, and he says, what is he making a fuss with this Targum? He says, wherever it says Kohen Mashuach, the Targum teaches Mashuach anointed Kohen Rav Ravaya. So because they're being anointed, so that's what we call them Rav Ravaya, but it doesn't mean they're Kohen Gedolim. They're anointed. So leave it. That's Kana Rav Ravaya, another Avihu or Rav Ravaya, but they're anointed. That's what it means, and that's the way the Targum teaches. So therefore, he doesn't like his pshat. But then the Rabbi Aaron 11 brings another pshat, and this is a very interesting pshat, which is like revolutionary, and that is not his own pshat. But this is found in the Rishonim, and that is, he says, maybe the Targum is of the opinion that Nadav Avihu, because in the Shmonos, in the Yemei HaMiluyim, they were anointed, like it says in Chumash, right? They have to be anointed with the Shemen HaMishcha. So during that period of the 8 days and following, they had a din of a Kohen Gadol. Would you believe it? They had a din of a Kohen Gadol. It's Parsha not to be believed. They had a din of a Kohen Gadol. And it's actually, and then he goes on to say, it's a mefurish das keni bebali atoisvis. If you'll take out a das keni bebali atoisvis, where it says in the Chumash and Parsha Shmini, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't tell Elazar Summer to look after the mason, to look after another Avihu, their brothers. Who does he tell? He tells Elazar, he says Elitzafan, right? He talks to who? To the cousins, right? To Mishael and Elitzafan. He doesn't talk to Elazar and Isamar. Says the Das Keni Bebali HaToisvet, and it brings it from the Sefer Parsha from the Rishonim. That because they were Nimshach B'Shem and Amishcha, they had a din of a Kohen Gadol. And because they had a din of a Kohen Gadol, so only a Kohen Gadol can't be Metamal a Mason. And that's why they weren't commanded, they weren't allowed to be Metama to their own brothers. A Kohen Hedyot can be Metamal a Mason, like it says in Parshas Amor, right? But a Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be Metamal a Mason, not a din of a Kohen Gadol. Take out your Das Kenim on that pasuk. He talks to Mishael and Elitzafan, and that's why he says the B'chor Shur, the Rabbi Yosef B'chor Shur also explains why HaKadosh Baruch Hu therefore says that they shouldn't have their hair long, and the din is that a Kohen Hedyot is allowed to have long hair, etc., etc., and he doesn't have to rent his garments, etc., etc. So why is he saying it to the Kohen Medyotim? Says Rabbi Yosef B'chor Shur because his brothers had a Kohen Gadol. And it concludes, the pasuk, he says, therefore it concludes, ki, it says, ki shemen mishchas Hashem aleichem. And with this, they say a gewaldige thing. It says in Medrash, one of the reasons they were chayav misa, because they were mechusar b'godim. They came in with some of the garments which were, with the insufficient amount of garments. They had to wear bigdi kohuna. Guess what? You know what the Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah says in Parsha Acharei? Which garment was missing? The me'il. Who wears a me'il? A Kohen Gadol. So what's the problem that the Kohen Hedyot doesn't have a me'il? What are they doing with a me'il? So Lamaisa, all the Mefarshei HaMedrash bring the question, and they bring a Tshuvas HaRosh, Rabbeinu Asher in the Sharas of Tshuvas HaRosh, in Simin Yud Gimel, and Klal Yud Gimel, Ois Chav Beis, I think it is, at the end of the Tshuva, he asks the Shaila, and he says the truth is that they didn't have to wear Shmona B'godim. It's just that based on their they wanted to be Kohanim Gedolim. That was their wish and that was their yearning. So in their minds, they wanted to be Kohanim Gedolim. So based on what they yearned to be, on that they should have had all their B'godim, even the Me'il. And because based on their minds, they didn't fulfill that, so that was regarded to them as a sin. That's the meaning of the Rosh. That's what the Rosh says. But actually, other Mefarshim learn Befedish not so. They say they actually had a din of a Kohen Gadol because they were Nimshach, they were anointed at the time. So therefore, the Ramban says they were Nimshach, and therefore they remained to have a din of a Kohen Mashuach. And listen to this. Here comes the punchline. Here comes the punchline. It says in the Pirush Yedei Moshe. It says in the Pirush Yedei Moshe that Vibalde had a din of a Kohen Gadol. Listen to this. He says, yes, they therefore wore Shmona B'godim. They wore Shmona B'godim. Whilst that took place, they were treated like Kohanim Gedolim, listen carefully, and therefore they should have had the Me'il on them. Now, listen here, interesting halacha. if you take out the Rambam in Hilchas Bias Migdosh, Perek Beis Halacha Hey, the Rambam tells us a halacha that a kohen is chayav misa if he goes out of the Beis Hamikdash b'shas avodah. Perek Beis Halacha Hey, okay, and he says this halacha applies to both to a kohen gadol and to a kohen hedyot. And he brings a pasuk. It says, that means HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to who? He's speaking to the people who remained alive in the time of Nadav Avihu, right? Elazar v'Yisamar. And he's speaking to Aaron and Elazar v'Yisamar. And from there, the Rambam derives that when Hashem says to them, this applies to both a Kohen Gadol and a Kohen Hedyot. Yeah? Comes the Rivit and he says, what's going on? Amar Avram. To me, a Tama Gadol who's there. How can the Rambam derive from this pasuk that it's a din for a kohen hedyot, right? They were nimshach by his man. You can't know from here that it's a din for the deiros for a kohen hedyot. They were kohenim shenimshechu. That's what the Rivit says on the Rambam. Comes again Rab Chaim Brisker and Chidush Rab Chaim Alevi, and he says, I don't understand what the Rivit's saying. Just because the kohen shenimshechu, they're treated like kohenim gdolim? Not a kohen gadol if you're nimshach. But the Day Moshe in the Medrash says that while they were nimshach, according to the Rivit, they had to wear shmanit gadol like a kohen gadol. In other words, this Rivit, that's what Rab Chaim asks this kasha. But the Day Moshe says mefurish that this Rivit is understood because the Rivit understood that a kohen shenimshach, those kohenim, some of you were anointed, that we didn't have a kohen gadol. Now we easily reconcile Lefizeh, this that we said that that's a Rogatchover. The Rogatchover says the whole pshetel and pirush of the Rogatchover only makes sense if they were kohenim mediated, because then he was an einin. He would have been an einin, and that's what have to be die. They die in the split second. Because if they're kohenim gedolim, it's not a problem with being an einin. But guess what? From this Rambam, it's very clear that the Rambam holds that they had no din of a kohen gadol. The Rambam says from the psukim in Parsha Shmini, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu addresses Elazar v'Yisamar, that's a lesson both for a kohen gadol and a kohen hedyot. He learned that Elazar v'Yisamar were kohen hedyotim. Mashenk and the Rivit said v'baldu animshach davadin of a kohen gadol, like the Yedei Moshe says in the Medrash. So with this, we wrap this sugya up. I just want to conclude on a happy line. And this is a word which is brought from Rabbi Levik. Rabbi Levik that's the way he was known in Lubavitch. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, that's the Rebbe, the Lubavitch Rebbe Schusi Yergolenu's father. He was a big Mekubal, he was a Rav in Yekateringislav. He knew Kol HaTorah Kula, he was a Palnigla, a big Poisik. He had Smicha of Reb Chaim Brisker, but he was a big Mekubal. And his Kabbalah is like mind-boggling. Unbelievable. So I found an Inyan on the Nadav Avihu. Listen to what he says. He says, Nadav Chanukah. Chanukah. Givaldik. What is Chanukah? Chanukah is Chaf Hey B'Kislev, right? Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu make? Why is Chanukah B'Chaf Hey B'Kislev? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Medrash says that the Mishkan was finished built in Chaf Hey Kislev. The Mishkan was finished being assembled, put together, ready to go up. Nevertheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the inauguration of the Mishkan on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will repay back the Am Yisrael with the what? With the Chanukah Sabayis, Chanukah Samizbeach in the time of Chanukah. So basically, and that's where we read the Parsha Anasim in Chanukah. Why? Because the Chanukah Samizbeach and the Chanukah Beis HaMikdash is, so to speak, as a reflection of the Chanukah Samishkan Mizban HaMishkan. The Mele says, Rabbi Levik as follows, Chanukah, when was the Ptira of Nadav Avihu? The Ptira of Nadav Avihu was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? In the day when it was Shmona L'Miluim. So he says Chanukah. Let's take Chanukah. Ches number one is Chanukah, and Ches is also Shmini L'Miluim. That's Ches. And then we have Nu and Cha. Nu, Machamoitzi. You know what Nu is? Nu is Bigimatria Nadav. Did you know? Make a big cheshbon. It's 56. No big deal. Nadav is 56 and Nu is 56. And guess what? Avihu, Aleph, Beis, Yud, Hey, Vav, Aleph, is the Gematria Chaf Hey, is 25. And that's what he says, that's Chanukah. Chanukah, that's the Shmini L'Miluim, the Chanukah which we celebrate. On the Chaf Hey B'Kislev, so it's the Ches, it's the Shmona Yomim, it's the Shmini L'Miluim, it's the Ches for Chanukah. It is what? It's Chanukah, it's the Nadav and Avihu, which one is Stalik, Dafka when in Rosh Chodesh Nisan the Chesed Miluim. So we're ending with a lichtige note, and that's the soll der Eibishter geben, that we should have the Eibishter soll machen lichtig in der Welt. Und soll tage und beiker lichtig bei Jeden. Und wir sollen nicht hören, kein Scheid v'shever, und soll sein, nur Arichas Yama v'shanim teves, and all those who need a for Shleima. So have it for Shleima, so every hour on the hour, we're giving against Tzedakah das al mimavis, is all the Rebbeisher geben, beschus from the limit of Torah, of the Rogatchover going to Sarah Torah. And like Rav Zevin says, questionable if there's such a thing as a Sarah Torah. Sarah Torah is Chachmosir, it's only Shalach Kodesh Baruch Hu, we can say a Sarah Torah, and bewarft sich in the gas, there's a Sarah Torah. Sind Eibse da Sarah Torah, der eine, das ist der Rogatchover. Anafgemine. Die Rike ist der Rebbeisher soll geben, bis Chus von der Limit der Torah, wir halten die Klamke für Rogatchover, in Bemele soll der Rebbeisher geben, wir soll nur sein, der alle Geloi von Matan Torah, and all those were healed by Matan Torah. So let the Rebbeisher give, and Iyar is the month of Avram, Yitzchak, Yankiv, Rochel, that's the Dalit, Ragla, and Merkava, and Iyar is Ani Hashem Reifecha, it's a month of healing, because the Baruch Hu should heal those who have to be healed. It should be Aliyas and Neshama. When we read the Acharei, we have in mind the Bnei, the Nodav Avihu, all the Tzaddikim, which bring a kapora and an atonement. So Nebuch, all those who passed away, their Aliyas and Neshama, B'schus Som, sollen sie sturren in der Meile. And the Rebbeisher sollen sie schicken, the Gula Shleima, V'meher V'yameinu, Amen, L'chaim V'lebracha. Thank you, good night.
Chaim. Shia.